Hey everyone, Cole here with trainwithcole.com, and I wanted to make another YouTube video today. I want to talk about this morning the three primary mechanisms that cause muscular hypertrophy when we train, right? What makes our muscles grow? There are three primary mechanisms that lead to muscle growth, so I wanted to go over those today. Also, I want to make it very clear that it is a Sunday morning. Go Hawks! We also have our little stuffed owl. This is Winston here, and he wanted to be part of the video as well. So here he is. Anyway, so the three mechanisms of muscular hypertrophy. Why do I want to talk about this? Well, I think it's important for the person who is obviously aesthetically physique minded, right? They want to look good. They want to build some muscle tissue. I think when we understand what causes our body to signal growth responses at a muscular level, I think we appreciate what we do in the gym a little bit more. I think we take it a little more seriously. We have a little bit more ownership, I guess, would be a good way to put it. And if we're willing to invest time learning about what actually causes us to grow, obviously our goals are pretty important to us, right? We wouldn't spend time doing that if we really didn't care. And just what understands, or what we understand, geez, with what we understand that happens as a result of training, we're going to program our workouts better. We're going to train more intelligently. We're going to program more specifically, and probably just do things much more efficiently. So what are the three mechanisms of muscular hypertrophy? Number one, here in my notes, mechanical tension. All right, what is that? Mechanical tension is simply the force of the weight load that is placed on our skeletal muscle when lifting. Also, for the sake of references and things, using Google to find some good definitions, some other good blog sites, and just basic, research articles and things like that. So please understand that the information that I have, I'm not just spewing out as my own. Of course, as a product of just doing some simple reading and Googling things, which you can do as well. So I don't want you to think that I'm just this crazy genius, right? I mean, I learn like anybody else, and so I just want to share that with what I do learn, but I want to make sure I put that disclaimer in there. So that's what mechanical tension is, right? The weight and load that is placed on our skeletal muscles when lifting. This is classic heavy training, right? So, if you're training chest and shoulders, for example, you go in and you do flat barbell bench press and you do sets of, maybe 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, somewhere in there. You're really stressing the muscular systems from a mechanical standpoint, right? We want to consider when we program for mechanical strength what compound movements we feel strong in, what will help bring up our body parts the most, what movements we feel the most in those certain muscles, and we want to milk those for all it's worth in mechanical overload. I think this point is really, really important because this, I mean, all the points could tie into this as well, but this one, I think, most closely has direct correlation to progressive overload, right? And I think that's why it's so important from a compound exercise standpoint, that we progress in those movements, right? They're multi-joint. We're going to move a lot of weight. We're going to put a lot of tension, hopefully, then on the muscles that we're training because we're doing heavy compound movements. We're not doing isolations or what have you. We're obviously not going to move as much load in those movements compared to the compound. So that's what mechanical tension is. This is the classic force of the weight on our muscles, classic heavy training style stuff. Is the best way to put it in the real world application. Point two, metabolic stress. Okay, so what is that? It's a variety of responses at the cellular level of the muscle, such as metabolic or metabolite buildup, reduction of pH in the blood, starvation of oxygen within the muscle, swelling of the muscle via localized water levels, that increase when training. That's common. That's what makes you feel the pump when you train, right? When you force a bunch of fluid into the cells of the muscle that you're training, that's what swells the muscle and it gives you that pump feeling. So that's what metabolic stress is, and typically we reach that threshold in the 8 to 12 to 15 kind of rep range. That's typically when you will get a muscle pump pretty quickly if you train in that rep range. And some research based, as I understand it, those kind of metabolite buildups and the reduction of pH in the blood and those kind of things happen when we train in that rep range. Not that they don't happen in other rep ranges, but we just see it commonly in those. This is a great way to grow, provided that contractions are excellent, meaning that you're really training the muscle, that you're not just moving a weight, and that you're still focusing on progressive overload, right? Because you can still add weight to the bar or do more reps with a certain weight in that 8 to 15 range, not just in that 1 to 7 or 8 rep range, like in the mechanical loading. Or mechanical tension rather, that we talked about a little bit ago. So, and obviously most training programs have heavier sets and then some lighter sets, in that 10 to 15 rep range. So I don't feel like it's uncommon to train in a mechanical tension and metabolic stress ranges, right? I think it's fairly common, but that's just the classifications of those there. The third mechanism of muscle growth, muscle damage, right? So as its name implies, it's simply the localized damage to whatever muscles we're training in a given session. This is a product of any kind of resistance training, especially that is appropriate or is tough, has an appropriate level of intensity to cause muscular damage, right? I mean, theoretically, if I pick up the remote sitting over here on my counter, or even if I pick up Winston and do 1,000 curls with Winston, I'm probably going to create muscular damage. Not very optimal, obviously, but if I do a set of bench press for 5 repetitions and they're a hard, heavy 5 repetitions, I'm probably going to cause muscular damage. And then if I progress through my workout and do a couple more heavy sets and then I transition to a classic 8 to 15 rep range, going to cause muscular damage, right? So again, that's the product of resistance training. I don't feel like that's inherently groundbreaking or not. People don't know that as well. I think it's fairly common. That's a big reason why we go weight train, right? We break our muscles down so they can rebuild. Now, that's a very fundamental explanation, but that's what we want. And there's a lot of ways to damage the muscle, right? So load, volume, different intensity techniques. Don't know what else to say about that. I think it's important to realize that we don't want to overly damage our muscles because we can hurt our recoverability if we just ram ourselves into the wall. So any good any good training program is going to have the appropriate amounts of load, intensity, volume, frequency, and also ensures that the training is able to recover from all of that. So, I think a healthy combination of these three things, again, mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscular damage, are needed in a good training program. And then understanding how to regulate these variables, understanding how to observe these variables in terms of how you respond to them and how you recover, will help you tweak to find kind of your sweet spot in terms of what variables of these do you respond best to. I do think all three are needed, absolutely. But I think there are some out there who maybe respond, at least from a muscular hypertrophy standpoint, some people respond much better to the 8 to 15, 20 rep range. And there's others that respond the best to the 1 to 6 or 7 rep range and progressing there. So it's really fun to kind of see and play for yourself to figure out what style of training you respond best to, provided that you have good nutrition and good recovery variables set in place. So, those are the three components of muscular hypertrophy. Let me know what you think in the comments below. What of these variables do you personally enjoy the most? What do you think you respond to the best? How do you incorporate these into your training? I'd love to hear that. You can, of course, shoot me an email at trainwithcole117@gmail.com. We can talk about it there. You can find me on Facebook. Just search Cole Dryer, or hit me up on Instagram or Snapchat or anything like that, and we can chat about it. Winston, do you have anything else to say? He never does. He just sits there and stares. All right, everybody, have a good day. Enjoy the NFL. If you're an NFL fan, go Hawks, baby.